What's up, y'all? We're back out here on the range again today. As you can see behind me, another cold one. Supposed to get up into the low 40s today, so if it does, it won't be too terrible. Although, as you can see, it's totally cloudy out here and the wind's blowing, so it's kind of canceling a little bit of extra temperature out. Problem is, it's supposed to be a total washout for the next 4 or 5 days because of the rain, so I'm gonna try to make the most of it out here today, as gloomy as it might be. I've got a few really interesting things planned for out here today, and I'm gonna start it out with something I've been very curious about in 10 mil. So we got the jelly contraption set up with a couple of chronos and 2 freshly melted blocks of gel. No tests at all done in these yet so far, so we get a nice clear picture of what happens. Heavy clothing barrier included, of course, with the layer of denim, fleece, and 2 layers of cotton t-shirt. And what we're checking out with this one here is something, again, that I've always been interested in. You always hear a lot about it. I've got my Glock 20 here, as you can see, and I've got my good old Buffalo bore. This is my favorite 10 mil ammo. People always ask me, I always direct them to a couple of videos I've done on this, but this is my absolute favorite 10 mil for really any purpose. It's their 180 grain, 1350 feet per second is what they've got here on the box. Now, I don't see that out of my G20, of course, because this is 5-inch velocity, but I always see 1330s, anywhere between, I think the lowest I've ever seen out of this G20 has been like 1298 and all the way up to 1330 something. But one thing you always hear in comments, and even on Buffalo Bore site, they talk about it, a heavier recoil spring, putting a heavier recoil spring than OEM. Now, OEM in this G20 is a 17-pound recoil spring. So what I've got here is NDZ's 22-pound guide rod and recoil spring. So it's a steel guide rod and a 22-pound recoil spring. So you're upping the spring force by 5 pounds there. And then I've also got a Lone Wolf Alpha Wolf barrel here for it. So stock length, 4.6 inch. Now, some of the benefits of this, as you can see here, let's see what they got. Stress relief steel, exacting tolerances, produce greater shot-to-shot accuracy, improved feed ramp design, so it's got full chamber support. You always hear people talking about that with Glocks, not the fully supported chamber. Tighter dimensions than the original, so who knows what's going to go on if you see any velocity increase. Fluting for heat dissipation and all that good stuff. But basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run my normal testing 1 round totally OEM with the OEM barrel and spring, and then we're going to change it out and we're going to run the next group with this Alpha Wolf barrel and the NDZ spring, and we're going to see what kind of differences we get. Now, I'm not really expecting to see any kind of velocity increases, but I am kind of expecting to see, based on what I've read and heard, a decrease in the extreme spread between the rounds and more consistency. So this is one that's going to be very interesting to me personally. I've always wondered about this. Now, I'll tell you right now, if it weren't for these videos, I would never buy these, because I've had absolutely zero problem for my G20, and the extreme spread that I'm getting through it is absolutely fine with me. But maybe there will be a benefit to this stuff. Let me get everything set up and let's find out. All right, let's see how fast this stuff's moving, y'all. I'm gonna do a 5-round average from the OEM stuff and then a 5-round average from the others. Again, normally I see anywhere from 13 to 1330-ish. I maybe seen 1350 even a time or two. So be interesting to see what we get here out in the cold weather, if it's any much different. I don't suspect a whole lot of difference here. God, it feels so good. 1303, 1302, 1305, 1308, and 1302. So not quite as high as I have seen before, but all of them over 1300, and that seemed very consistent for the OEM. Let's check that average. All right, y'all, I think this experiment right here is going to confirm my suspicions that there ain't going to be much difference at all. The 5-round average on that right there was 1304, an extreme spread of 6 with a standard deviation of 2.4. Now, again, pretty much both times in the past that I've tested this stuff, I've seen a little higher than that. I've seen up to 1330, maybe 1340-ish or so. So could be the cold weather out here, but whatever the case, incredibly consistent right there. So I don't know. I don't think that add-on stuff's gonna make much difference, but let me get it reset and let's check it out. All right, I got the Alpha Wolf barrel in there and the NDZ 22-pound spring. So let's see what happens. I didn't feel much difference as far as pullback force right there, racking it. So that ain't gonna make a big difference. I'm gonna tell you right now, ain't no way. There's no way this is gonna improve on that extreme spread right there. There's no way. Well, let's see what happens. Ain't no way, y'all. That stuff just feels so good. 1264, 1284, 1264, 1276, and 1261. Ain't that something right there, y'all? We got lower velocities with the fancy stuff added in there. Let's check out that average. All right, y'all, this is exactly the opposite of what we were supposedly gonna see out of this right here. 5-round average that time was 1270. We had an extreme spread of 23 and a standard deviation of 9.8. So still the consistency is really, really good. But in my opinion, so far, this right here is just totally debunking the theory of the stronger recoil spring. So it was 1270 here, and if you remember on the OEM stuff, it was 1304, so you're only talking about 34 feet per second difference between them, so really just negligible difference. But that is kind of funny that the fancier stuff gave us a slower overall velocity. All that being said, there's no doubt this stuff's gonna shine in the gel here. What I'm curious to see is if the optical chrono will kind of verify the little bit lower speed with the fancy stuff. But let's get this stuff set up, and y'all know what time it is. All right, y'all, it's stiff upper lip jelly time. I'm gonna put 1 round through each setup into the gel, starting with this OEM first. Again, I'm most curious to see what this optical chrono says as far as verifying the speed between the 2 setups. In the gel, they're both gonna do incredible. There's no doubt in my mind you're gonna see tons of expansion, 18 inches of penetration probably, and a little bit of fragmentation. Well, let's see what we get here, y'all, as far as speeds between these things. That should have been a good one as long as it didn't come out. Let's go see what we got. All right, nothing really surprising right there. Absolutely beautiful performance in the gel. It didn't go quite as far as I thought it would. Last time I remember it going about 18, but it still did plenty. Let's see what this Lone Wolf does. Now, the velocity on that I noticed was 1312, so it'll be curious to see what this Lone Wolf does. I don't expect it to do much different. As far as performance, I don't expect any difference. Now I think that one might have came out the side. Let me go see what I got. All right, y'all, of course it curved out on me after I put it exactly where I wanted. I mean, it's perfect placement down there to compare those things. And I think it was almost at the end of its travel. I think it would have stayed if it wouldn't have hit the junction between the 2 blocks and it popped out. If I looked long enough, I could probably find it on the ground somewhere. But interestingly enough, I saw what I wanted to see. The velocity on that was 1256, so lower than the OEM again, even verified with that optical chrono. So it ain't just coincidence. This fancy setup is actually lower velocity for whatever the reason. Well, let's throw another one in there so hopefully we can catch this one. I'm gonna try to push this over to the right more than I normally would. See what we get here. All right, that should have been perfect and stayed in right there. Let's go check that stuff out. All right, y'all, let's check out what we got down here. I'll just tell you right now, I'm very disappointed in this test. Not in the performance in the gel or the performance from these rounds, but just for the fact that we didn't gain anything from adding that fancy stuff. In fact, we lost everything. I mean, we didn't get any better consistency. We got worse consistency. We got slower velocity across the board, verified from 2 different chronos. So I'm telling you right now, that was a total waste. That was about 150 bucks just wasted in my opinion, because that did absolutely nothing. But anyway, we'll take a quick look at these. I've tested these a couple different times. They do fantastic every time. Same thing here again. Great expansion immediately. Fantastic energy transfer and disruption. Carries all the way through that first block. Now this first one here stopped just a tiny bit short. I mean, it almost touched the end of this 16-inch block. It's like 1/8 of an inch away. So 15 7/8 if you want to call it. The other 2, those were from the Lone Wolf one. They went a little bit further. I think that's just chance. That one looks like it's at about 16.5, and this one went out at about the same, about 16.5. So absolutely fantastic performance from all 3 of these rounds. I'm just really disappointed that we didn't see any kind of difference from those additions. But as far far as the penetration here, I mean, this one here is actually touching the 16. If you get real technical, it's got a couple little wispies out at 16. That was the OEM one. And then again, these ones through the Lone Wolf, this one here is at about actually right at 16 3/4. And then that one went out at about the same, 16 3/4. And here's your closer look. As you can see, they all three look nearly identical. You can't tell any difference between them. Very nice disruption, energy transfer all the way through this first block. That one there stopped right at that 16-inch mark. This one here, again, just went a little bit further. And then that one there is the one we called. As you can see, really, really nice expansion from both of them. And then from the top, same deal. A little bit tricky to see from above here, though, just because how they kind of stacked. As you can see, carries all the way through. There's that one barely right at that 16-inch, and then the other one's just a little bit further. All right, let's check out these projectiles, y'all. This one right here was the OEM, and this was the fancy stuff. Definitely a difference in these now. Not a whole lot, but this one's got more expansion to it. If you look from the side, you can really tell. You can see how these pedals on this OEM, they folded all the way down to the base, whereas you're just a little shy on this Lone Wolf. Now, that's just splitting hairs right there. Both of these did a fantastic job, but you can really see that little bit of velocity really does make a difference. And again, it's very disappointing that that fancy stuff actually took away from the performance. So let's get a couple measurements while we got them out here. I know I've tested these a couple times already, but the more data the better. So this one from the Lone Wolf here, they both started at 180. This one's at 178.8. I said Lone Wolf, but y'all know what I mean, the fancy stuff. So 178.8. Now this one's probably got a little bit more loss here. This was the OEM, and this one, sure enough, it's at 174.6. So a little bit more loss on that. You can see some tiny little fragments from all of them, which I totally expected. And then as far as the expansion on them, should be very similar here. The one with the fancy stuff, you got 605, 606, and 601. So really nice, consistent expansion there. And then the OEM one here, you got 627, 626, and 624. So again, very nice, really consistent expansion from both of them. And there you go, y'all, a 10mm buffalo bore test using OEM versus fancy stuff. Again, very disappointed in this. Let me say this, I'm disappointed that 150 bucks didn't get me anything, because I'll tell y'all right now, there is no way I would have got this stuff if it weren't for doing these videos. I'm one that does not believe all that hoopla that you read in the comments about the chamber support and the blah blah. I don't buy into any of that, and I never would have got this stuff to even test if it weren't for needing to make these videos. So disappointed that I spent 150 bucks cash, but I'm actually glad that the OEM did better, because now there's no doubt, I'm sure there's people out there doubting tests all the time. Oh, well, maybe there's something wrong with that Glock. Maybe the barrel's wore out, maybe this, maybe that. So that right there, it can get squashed by this test if nothing else. But again, I really am disappointed that all that fancy stuff and that cash didn't get you any more performance. All right, y'all, I'm calling it right there for what was an absolutely disappointing first test of the day for me. This was totally not what I expected to see. Now, again, I'm always skeptical. I don't buy into something you read on a Reddit post or anything else like that. So I didn't expect to see much difference in this, but I definitely did not expect to see a decrease in performance from it. And we got a decent decrease in performance. I don't care what kind of excuses anybody can pull out. It's verified through 2 different chronos, colder barrel, warmer barrels. I'm telling you right now, it's plain as day right here. We had a decrease in performance from spending cash on fancy parts. Now, the one question I still personally kind of have on this is, which part was it? Was it a combination of both? Would I be good with the spring? Would that do something for the velocities or do something for the spreads anyway with the OEM barrel, or vice versa? But that being said, once you get thinking about it, that OEM group had an extreme spread of 6. I'm telling you right now, you ain't gonna beat no extreme spread of 6. I don't care what kind of parts you're using. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a total waste of cash to get these fancy parts on your Glock. Absolute waste of cash. You're not getting any better performance, and in fact, you are getting worse performance. Now, one other reason that's got me so disappointed and worked up out here, because spoiler alert, I did the same thing for my G29 also. I wasn't planning on doing that video today, but I was definitely gonna do that video. I've got an upgraded spring and the barrel for that one too. So after seeing see, and this right here, I don't have any hope for that one either. But let me know what y'all think about it. Those of y'all out there who have changed your springs or barrels, if it's a KKM, a Lone Wolf, I don't think there's any difference. So please save me the comments about, oh, a KKM barrel would have did this. It don't make any difference. Come on, y'all. This stuff right here, it's plain as day that there is very little, there's no difference. There's absolutely no difference in a positive way for adding all this stuff on. But let me know down in the comments anyway if y'all have a different opinion on it or if you've actually seen something different. If you did enjoy the video, reach down and hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you got your notifications turned on so you get notified when I upload new stuff. If you are doing some shopping for some of these fancy parts for whatever reason, make sure you check out my affiliate links down below in the video description. Anything you buy after hitting up those links down there, I get a kickback from them towards the channel, so I really do appreciate that. Once again, a big thanks to all my Range Gang members and every single one of y'all for supporting the channel. I've got a couple more really interesting things planned for out here today. Hopefully they don't disappoint me like this one did. Make sure y'all stay on the lookout for all that. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay prepared, and I'll see you soon.